In the celestial devil world of the exquisite Kiliacosm, in the magnificent celestial devil palace, the celestial devil emperor sat upright on a huge throne. When he heard the report from his subordinate celestial devil king, his expression gradually darkened. He was currently in charge of the exquisite Kiliacosm, and the celestial devils had the absolute advantage in the exquisite Kiliacosm to begin with. When had they ever suffered such heavy losses when encircling and attacking the remnants of the primordial lodge? Emperor White Rainbow, Emperor Golden Ring, I'll have to trouble the two of you to personally take action and kill those remnants of the primordial lodge. In particular, you must kill that controller who's suspected to be an emperor. Yes, your majesty. These two celestial devil emperors were both famous emperors among the celestial devils of the exquisite Kiliacosm. Every emperor had more than 3,000 layers of celestial devil's true form. With the two emperors leading many celestial devil kings, it was enough to destroy any surviving member of the primordial lodge. The emperor of the exquisite Kiliacosm was so enraged that he was determined to kill all the remaining members of the primordial lodge. Hence, the two emperors immediately led the many celestial devil kings and chased after the surviving members of the primordial lodge. Phew, we're finally out. Haha, we can finally leave the exquisite Kiliacosm. I didn't expect that we'd be able to leave the exquisite Kiliacosm alive one day. This is all thanks to Supremacy Lin Feng. If not for the fact that Supremacy Lin Feng killed countless celestial devils along the way, almost without stopping at all, we would not have been able to leave the exquisite Kiliacosm so quickly. Otherwise, the celestial devils pursuing us would have arrived long ago. Where can we go after leaving the exquisite Kiliacosm? Lin Feng led the many controllers of the primordial lodge and finally left the exquisite Kiliacosm, entering the Kiliacosm domain corridor. Many controllers sighed with emotion. Along the way, Lin Feng had displayed absolute strength. There were many powerful celestial devils blocking their way, but basically none of them could slow everyone down. Lin Feng killed all the celestial devils they encountered. That was why these controllers could travel so smoothly. Supremacy Autumn. Lin Feng looked at Supremacy Autumn. Seeing Supremacy Autumn again in such a manner actually made Supremacy Autumn sigh with emotion as well. Supremacy Lin Feng, I didn't expect you to have already reached this level after centuries. It's really incredible. Supremacy Autumn was indeed very emotional. Even with his knowledge, he did not know what level Lin Feng had reached now. It was as if he could enter and exit the exquisite Kiliacosm freely without meeting any resistance. This was too terrifying. Even Supremacy Autumn did not dare to think too deeply about it. Plans? Wandering actually meant being a loner. However, although loners looked carefree, they were actually not that lucky. Moreover, they often encountered danger. If he had a choice, Supremacy Autumn would not choose to wander. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Then he said, Supremacy Autumn, I came specially to find you this time. I wonder if Supremacy Autumn is willing to go to the dark domain and help me to manage it. Ha! Supremacy Autumn was slightly stunned. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Lin Feng. Help you manage the dark domain? What do you mean the dark domain is yours? That's right. I've already expelled the two celestial devil emperors in the dark domain and destroyed the celestial devil world. There shouldn't be any thriving celestial devils in the entire dark domain now. But I'm alone and can't manage the dark domain for the time being. Hence, I'm here to find Supremacy Autumn. If Supremacy Autumn is interested, you can bring some more controllers. The more, the better. Only then can we manage the entire dark domain better. Lin Feng's words made Supremacy Autumn and Supremacy Winter's eyes light up. Supremacy Autumn was incomparably excited. Hundreds of years ago, under the lead of Supremacy Summer, they had not been able to successfully expel the celestial devils in the dark domain. But now, Lin Feng had actually expelled the celestial devils of the dark domain. How could Supremacy Autumn not be excited? Supremacy Autumn, are you willing? Yes, of course I'm willing. Haha, there's no need to wander anymore. Moreover, how can I not be willing to manage such a huge Kiliacosm domain? Supremacy Autumn threw his head back and laughed aloud. He was genuinely happy. The other controllers also learned of the conversation between Lin Feng and Supremacy Autumn. All of them craned their necks and looked at Lin Feng expectantly. Of course Lin Feng knew what they were looking forward to. Hence, he said with a smile, "Everyone, if anyone is willing to come to the Dark Domain, you can also come to the Dark Domain and join the faction I established to manage the Dark Domain together." The many controllers were also incomparably overjoyed. All of them naturally nodded in agreement. Being able to go to the Dark Domain might be their best outcome. Otherwise, if they were not strong but wandered everywhere, they would eventually achieve nothing and encounter danger. Seeing that everyone had agreed, Lin Feng was also very satisfied. He could bring back about 200 controllers to the Dark Domain this time. It was enough to manage the Dark Domain for the time being. As for future expansions, he would have to think of another way in the future. All right, then let's return to the Dark Domain immediately. Lin Feng made a prompt decision and did not linger any longer. He led the many controllers, and they headed towards the Dark Domain together in a mighty manner. Swoosh! Not long after Lin Feng left the exquisite Kiliacosm with the many controllers, some celestial devils appeared outside the exquisite Kiliacosm. The two celestial devils in the lead were the famous Emperor White Rainbow and Emperor Golden Ring of the exquisite Kiliacosm. They were both celestial devil emperors with over 3,000 layers of celestial devil's true form, and were ordered to intercept Lin Feng and the other survivors of the Primordial Lodge. Unfortunately, Lin Feng and the others had long left the exquisite Kiliacosm. Emperor White Rainbow sneered and said, "Their auras are still here. Clearly, they haven't left for long. We just need to catch up. No matter where they run to, our order is to kill them. We can't let any of them off." Emperor White Rainbow advocated annihilation. Why would the two of them, who were celestial devil emperors, be afraid of those remnants of the Primordial Lodge? Emperor Golden Ring hesitated for a moment, but when he thought of the cruel methods of that emperor of the exquisite Kiliacosm, his heart skipped a beat. They must obey the orders of the emperor and complete the mission well. Then let's catch up with them. The two emperors reached an agreement, so they quickly followed the aura of the remnants of the Primordial Lodge. Lin Feng led Supremacy Autumn and the other controllers back to the Dark Domain. Lin Feng did not name it the Dark Domain Alliance. Rather, it was named the Domain Alliance because he also had ambitions. The future development of the Domain Alliance would not even be limited to the Dark Domain. Lin Feng established the Domain Alliance. As the Alliance leader himself, he appointed Supremacy Autumn and Supremacy Winter as Alliance deputy leaders respectively. He also established a series of rules for the Dark Domain. For example, it was forbidden to devour worlds at will. Currently, although there were many worlds in the entire Dark Domain, continuing to devour them was no longer appropriate. What Lin Feng wanted was a prosperous domain like the Wonder Domain, instead of a domain that's devoured clean by the controllers and starting all over again. Hence, not devouring worlds at will was the most important order. Of course, how could controllers increase their strength? They could go and kill celestial devils. In any case, celestial devils were everywhere in the various Kiliacosm domains. Or they could wait for some world rulers to take the initiative to enter the internal universe of controllers. It was just that the probability of this was very, very low. However, controllers could enjoy safety in the Dark Domain. This was something that other Kiliacosm domains could not provide. This was the benefit of order. As the Domain Alliance was established, the first order Lin Feng gave was to search for the boundary stones comprehensively throughout the entire Dark Domain. Be it high-quality or low-quality boundary stones, all of them had to be searched and handed over. The Domain Alliance would reward them according to the number and quality of the boundary stones. For example, some world origin could be obtained by killing the celestial devil's true forms. Even if Lin Feng only offered a little as a reward, it could benefit many controllers. Hence, the Domain Alliance also entered a state of positive development. Moreover, with many controllers of the Domain Alliance searching, Lin Feng began to obtain the boundary stones continuously. Of course, almost all of them were low-quality boundary stones, but to Lin Feng they were already quite good. With accumulation over time, it would also be a considerable number. Dark Domain, I'm back. In the vast Kiliacosm domain corridor, a familiar figure appeared outside the Dark Domain. Immediately on the heels of that, a few more figures appeared, led by a celestial devil emperor. Emperor Mongshan, is this the dark domain? Emperor Tongshan said indifferently. Emperor Mongshan hurriedly bowed and replied humbly, Emperor Tongshan, this is indeed the dark domain. It is currently occupied by a controller. It turned out that this person was Emperor Tongshan. Beside Emperor Tongshan were the 5 emperors, Emperor Mongshan, Emperor Yinshan, and Emperor Pingshan. Among the 5 emperors, one of them was Emperor Tongshan, who had more than 3,600 layers of celestial devil's true form. The reinforcements that Emperor Mongshan had invited this time were indeed powerful, even powerful to the extreme. In particular, there was Emperor Hellfire behind them. That was a true big shot. Is such a remote Kiliacosm domain worth so much of your effort? Emperor Tongshan shook his head slightly. He did not understand Emperor Mongshan's actions. Emperor Tongshan had almost everything he wanted in the Black Ice domain, and his strength increased extremely quickly. It improved far faster than Emperor Mongshan. The fact that Emperor Mongshan paid a huge price to launch a counterattack on the Dark Domain was unfathomable to Emperor Tongshan. Ha! Who is it? Emperor White Rainbow and Emperor Golden Ring were very surprised. They had been tracking the auras of Supremacy Autumn and the others, and arrived outside this Kiliacosm domain. The surviving members of the Primordial Lodge had yet to discover them, but they had discovered other celestial devils instead. It would have been fine if they were just ordinary celestial devils, but as celestial devils, Emperor White Rainbow and Emperor Golden Ring could clearly sense that the 5 celestial devils opposite them had auras similar to theirs. This proved that the 5 celestial devils on the other side were all emperors. However, was it possible for 5 dignified celestial devils to gather outside this tiny Kiliacosm domain? Who are you? Emperor Tongshan asked coldly. Although they were all celestial devils, they were not from the same faction, so he would not be nice. Battles between celestial devils were not uncommon. Hence, there was no sense of affinity between the 2 parties at all. Rather, there was a hint of wariness. We are subordinates of Emperor Haoming of the exquisite Kiliacosm. I am Emperor White Rainbow, and this is Emperor Golden Ring. We are here under orders to capture some remnants of the Primordial Lodge. Who are you? Emperor White Rainbow was the first to make the introduction, and named Emperor Haoming. Emperor Haoming was the ruler of the exquisite Kiliacosm. He had 8,000 layers of celestial devil's true form, and could be said to be one of the peak emperors. He could be considered famous among celestial devils. So you're the celestial devil of the exquisite Kiliacosm. We're from the Black Ice domain, under the command of Emperor Hellfire. I'm Emperor Tongshan. We're under the orders of Emperor Hellfire to help Emperor Mongshan seize back the Dark Domain and eliminate the controllers in it. Emperor White Rainbow frowned slightly. He knew about the Black Ice domain and had also heard of the name of Emperor Inferno. He was a powerful emperor with over 5,000 layers of celestial devil's true form. Of course, compared to Emperor Haoming, Emperor Hellfire was slightly inferior. However, Emperor Hellfire was the trusted aide of Emperor Alcor. He could not be underestimated. Emperor Alcor was one of the top emperors, and even Emperor Haoming was far inferior to him. He was almost about to become a 1-star emperor, and could be said to have a great reputation. However, the 2 parties met here and were wary of each other. For a moment, neither of them stepped into the Dark Domain. Instead, they glared menacingly at each other, and the atmosphere was rather tense. At this moment, Emperor Mongshan had a thought. He asked, Emperor White Rainbow, are the 4 seasons supremacies among the remnants of the Primordial Lodge you're hunting down? And a controller called Lin Feng. 4 seasons supremacies? That sounds a little familiar. That's right. There are indeed 2 controller supremacies among the remnants of the Primordial Lodge, Supremacy Autumn and Supremacy Winter. They are known as the 4 seasons supremacies. We did track them here. As for Supremacy Lin Feng, if I'm not wrong, he should be the controller who helped Supremacy Autumn and the other remnants of the Primordial Lodge escape. Emperor White Rainbow also explained everything in detail. Haha, what a coincidence. Actually, our goals are the same. That controller called Lin Feng used to be a member of the Primordial Lodge, and now he's occupying the Dark Domain. If I'm not wrong, we're targeting the same person, Emperor Mongshan hurriedly said. This time, both parties looked at each other and found it very interesting. A mere controller could actually offend Emperor Helier and Emperor Haoming at the same time, and he had provoked two massive Kiliacosm domains at that. Since our goals are the same, things will be easier. Why don't we work together? We want to kill those remnants of the Primordial Lodge. As for this tiny Kiliacosm domain, it will naturally be yours, Emperor Golden Ring also suggested. The power of these 7 emperors was enough to sweep through the entire Dark Domain. That's great. That's exactly what I'd like. Hence, after the two parties discussed it, they entered the Dark Domain together. Huh? There's not enough world origin left. Lin Feng sat upright in the secret chamber. He had established the Domain Alliance to help him plunder the boundary stones better. The Domain Alliance did not disappoint, and plundered a large amount of boundary stones for Lin Feng. A mature Kiliacosm domain, even a remote and very small Kiliacosm domain like the Dark Domain, produced many boundary stones. Unfortunately, they were all low-quality boundary stones. There were no high-quality boundary stones. Even so, it provided Lin Feng with more than 1,000 boundary stones. Moreover, Lin Feng successfully grew more than 1,000 worlds, allowing the combat power of his internal universe to reach about 7,000 worlds. Just as Lin Feng was even looking forward to crossing the natural chasm in one go and becoming a 1-star supremacy, he realized that his world origin was insufficient, and he could no longer continue nurturing worlds. Previously, although he had not completely exhausted the world origin of the celestial devil world after devouring it, there was not much left. It was definitely not enough to nurture thousands of worlds, let alone nurture Lin Feng's internal universe to 10,000 worlds, which would be comparable to a 1-star supremacy. Lin Feng thought about when he would make another trip to the exquisite Kiliacosm. There were many celestial devils in the exquisite Kiliacosm, but after asking Supremacy Autumn, Lin Feng dismissed this thought. According to what Supremacy Autumn had mentioned, the situation in the exquisite Kiliacosm was very complicated. Even on the surface, the forces of the exquisite Kiliacosm were incomparably powerful. Emperor Haoming was a powerful emperor with over 8,000 layers of celestial devil's true form. Of course, Emperor Haoming would not mobilize forces lightly. There were also a few emperors with over 5,000 layers under his command, as well as many emperors, celestial devil kings, and so on. If these were just superficial forces, Lin Feng really wasn't afraid. Emperor Haoming definitely would not attack personally lightly. Then, no matter how many celestial devils below Emperor Haoming were deployed, they would just be delivered to Lin Feng on a silver platter. However, Supremacy Autumn had mentioned that Emperor Haoming was only the ruler on the surface. Behind Emperor Haoming was a powerful faction among the celestial devils. Among them, there were even 1-star celestial devil emperors. The strongest one was even a 2-star celestial devil emperor. Back then, Supremacy Spring and the other 1-star supremacy of the Primordial Lodge were killed by the 2-star celestial devil emperor of the celestial devil faction behind them, and they went on to conquer the exquisite Kiliacosm afterward. If Lin Feng touched the exquisite Kiliacosm, Emperor Haoming alone would be easy to deal with. However, the supporters behind Emperor Haoming would not be so easy to deal with. Moreover, Supremacy Autumn had also mentioned that being a 1-star supremacy seemed to require more than possessing 10,000 worlds. Possessing 10,000 worlds was only the minimum requirement for being a 1-star supremacy. The internal world of a 1-star supremacy was like a Kiliacosm domain, and it also contained some special rules. For example, the nascent Kiliacosm domain in the swirl domain possessed special gravity rules. There were also differences in strength between 1-star supremacies. Apart from the number of worlds, they competed in terms of the special rules formed by the internal world. The stronger the rules, the stronger they would be. Of course, Supremacy Autumn had only mentioned it casually, and what he said was very vague. In reality, even Supremacy Autumn did not know the exact situation. 1-star supremacies always seemed to stay mysterious. The reason he knew this was that Supremacy Spring had vaguely mentioned it back then. Back then, Supremacy Spring had eventually become a one-star supremacy. A one-star supremacy was a dividing line. It was very, very difficult to cross the threshold of a one-star supremacy, be it for celestial devils or controllers. There were many supremacies or emperors, but the number of one-star supremacies or one-star emperors decreased drastically. They were truly 1 in 10,000. Moreover, it was very difficult for even 10,000 peak supremacies to give rise to a single one-star supremacy. Once one became a one-star supremacy, they could preside over a chiliocosm domain and could be considered a true dominus with a high status. There's no hurry, no hurry. I already have the combat power of 7,000 worlds. There's still time. I'll wait slowly. There will always be an opportunity. Lin Feng muttered softly. His heart was very calm. Deep down, he knew that he still had another choice. It was to return to the swirl domain and fight for that new chiliocosm domain. Perhaps that new chiliocosm domain could help Lin Feng to become a one-star supremacy. However, deep down, Lin Feng had a vague feeling that his current strength was still insufficient. Supremacy Muzhou and Supremacy Chendi were nothing much. But this little amount of strength was far from enough for him to completely dominate a new chiliocosm domain. This was because there was no knowing if news of that new chiliocosm domain had spread. Lin Feng closed his eyes again and began to organize the many worlds in his body. He also tried to see if some kind of special rules would be born when these worlds were integrated. Celestial devils, despicable celestial devils, our domain alliance will not let you off. This chiliocosm domain belongs to our domain alliance. Thud. As Emperor White Rainbow squeezed gently, the internal world of a controller instantly collapsed and turned into dust. A controller had fallen just like that. Heh, domain alliance? I didn't expect these remnants of the primordial lodge to have established a faction. They're doing quite well for themselves. Emperor White Rainbow's gaze became colder and colder. How long had it been? They still had not completed the mission given by Emperor Haoming yet. Emperor White Rainbow and Emperor Golden Ring also felt ashamed. I know where the lair of the domain alliance is, Emperor Mongshan suddenly said. Everyone looked at Emperor Mongshan, who gritted his teeth and said, if I'm not wrong, the lair of the domain alliance must be in the center of the dark domain. The celestial devil world I established back then is there, and it's the center of the providence of the entire dark domain. At the mention of the celestial devil world, Emperor Mongshan gritted his teeth in hatred. His hundreds of thousands of years of hard work had been destroyed overnight, all thanks to Lin Feng. No matter where it is, find those remnants of the primordial lodge as soon as possible. I don't want to hunt down those remnants one by one. It's simply a waste of time. Emperor White Rainbow was already a little anxious. He had thought that this mission was very simple. They just had to kill some remnants of the primordial lodge. Who would have thought that they would hunt them down to an unfamiliar chiliocosm domain? He did not want to waste time in this unfamiliar and wild chiliocosm domain. As a dignified emperor, he did not think much of the dark domain at all. Lead the way. Emperor Tongshan nodded and said to Emperor Mongshan. Soon, Emperor Mongshan led all the emperors to the center of the dark domain with familiarity. As expected, a prosperous world stood there. Huh? This world seems to be the internal world of a controller. That's right. You're quite bold to place your internal world in the chiliocosm domain. Although the risk has increased, any movement in the world will be known to you clearly. This is probably Lin Feng's expedient plan. The domain alliance has only been established for a short period of time, and its foundation is still shallow. It does not have a war fortress, so he can only use this method for now. Looking at the world floating in the dark domain, a smile appeared on the faces of the 7 emperors. A world. This was Lin Feng's world. Wasn't attacking worlds what the celestial devils were best at? Lin Feng had exposed his weakness by exposing his world to the 7 emperors. It was simply courting death. Everyone? Who'd like to attack first? Emperor White Rainbow's gaze shifted slightly. Celestial devils were sinister and cunning. They would never forget to scheme against others, no matter the time or place. Moreover, the 2 groups of celestial devils seemed to be very harmonious now, but in reality, neither of them trusted the other. If they had the opportunity, these two groups of celestial devils would definitely kill each other. Killing each other was nothing to the celestial devils. They only refrained from doing so now because they had a common enemy, and both parties had very powerful backgrounds and backings. Forget it. I'll deal with a mere controller. No one had expected Emperor Tongshan would be the first to attack. However, on careful thought, it was most suitable for Emperor Tongshan to attack first. He could crush Lin Feng's world at once. Only then could he maximize the impact on Lin Feng without causing unnecessary losses. Although everyone looked down on Lin Feng when talking about him, in reality, who would underestimate a terrifying entity comparable to an emperor? Without waiting for anyone to respond, Tongshan rushed over. At the same time, he suddenly deployed his 3,600-layer celestial devil's true form, transforming into a huge fiendish god that was indomitable and full of destructive aura. Emperor Tongshan folded his hands and smashed them down towards Lin Feng's world like an incomparably huge mountain. Break! Emperor Tongshan's voice echoed throughout the world. The entire sky seemed to have darkened all of a sudden. All the controllers looked at the huge devil's body in the sky in fear. Swoosh! In the secret chamber, Lin Feng sensed something and suddenly opened his eyes. Boom! Emperor Tongshan's terrifying punch smashed down like a mountain. However, traces of ripples suddenly appeared in Lin Feng's world. Accompanied by these ripples, Emperor Tongshan's attack was immediately weakened to the extreme and finally dissipated. This time, even Emperor Tongshan was surprised. Swoosh! A figure appeared in the dark domain, facing the 7 emperors from afar. It was Lin Feng. He glanced at Tongshan, but his expression did not change at all. With his hands behind his back, he said indifferently, "Who are you? I don't think I've seen you before." Lin Feng. Today is the day you die. The 7 emperors, including Emperor Mongshan and Emperor Yinshan, all flew over. Just now, Lin Feng was actually completely uninjured by Emperor Tongshan's strike. It did not even break his cosmic membrane. Actually, the hearts of the 7 emperors clenched slightly. This was definitely not a small matter. Emperor Tongshan had cultivated more than 3,600 layers of celestial devil's true form, but now, he could not even tear through Lin Feng's cosmic membrane. The celestial devil emperors knew the meaning behind this very well. Hence, without any hesitation, the 7 emperors instantly abandoned all discord and joined forces. Emperor Mongshan and Emperor Yinshan. Lin Feng glanced at Emperor Mongshan and Emperor Yinshan. Last time, he had let Emperor Mongshan and Emperor Yinshan escape. However, this time it would not be so easy for them to escape again. I am Emperor Tongsan, subordinate to Emperor Hellfire of the Black Ice Domain. You seized Emperor Mongshan's Dark Domain. Emperor Mongshan implored Emperor Hellfire for aid, and Emperor Hellfire decided to help Emperor Mongshan take back the Dark Domain. Although Emperor Tongshan was a little shocked, he was not too frightened. He had not actually used his full strength in that strike just now. It was just a test. Moreover, he did not come alone. Emperor Hellfire of the Black Ice Domain? Lin Feng had never heard of the Black Ice Domain. However, he would naturally find out when he inquired about it in the future. Then, he looked at the other 2 celestial devil emperors. He acutely sensed that these 2 emperors did not seem to be on the same side as Emperor Tongshan. Are you also under the command of Emperor Hellfire? Emperor White Rainbow hesitated for a moment. Lin Feng seemed to be different from what he had imagined. However, since they had already chased him here, and there were still celestial devils from the Black Ice Domain here, he naturally could not expose any weakness to the enemy. Hence, Emperor White Rainbow sneered and said, "You're Lin Feng? Humph, you were the one who saved the remnants of the Primordial Lodge, right? Took us a while to find you. There's no harm in telling you. I'll let you die knowing the truth. I'm Emperor White Rainbow, subordinate to Emperor Haoming of the exquisite Kiliacosm. I'm here on the orders of Emperor Haoming to eliminate the surviving members of your Primordial Lodge." Emperor Haoming of the exquisite Kiliacosm? Lin Feng was slightly stunned. He knew about this Emperor Haoming. He was the apparent ruler of the exquisite Kiliacosm, and had more than 8,000 layers of celestial devils' true form. He did not expect the celestial devils of the exquisite Kiliacosm to actually pursue him here. If Emperor Haoming had come personally, Lin Feng would have been a little wary, but these were only subordinates of Emperor Haoming. Lin Feng shook his head and did not pay much heed to them. The Black Ice Domain and the exquisite Kiliacosm have actually come together. Forget it, I might as well deal with them together today. Do you want to attack together, or one at a time? Lin Feng did not seem to care at all. He stood with his hands behind his back and looked coldly at the 7 emperors. As for the numerous celestial devil kings behind the 7 emperors, Lin Feng did not even spare a glance at them. Such an attitude naturally infuriated the 7 emperors. What an arrogant controller. A mere controller dares to be so arrogant. Humph. I'll crush your world today and eliminate the remnants of the primordial lodge. Emperor Tongshan, how about we attack together? We can't let this mere controller underestimate us. Although the 7 emperors, including Emperor Tongshan and Emperor White Rainbow, verbally condescended Lin Feng, in reality, both parties had an unspoken mutual understanding. They joined forces immediately, and the 7 emperors attacked together. Rumble. For a moment, in the vast void of the dark domain, incomparably huge celestial devils' true forms stretched across the dark domain. They were indomitable, emitting a terrifying aura of destruction. There were 7 celestial devil emperors. All of them had thousands of layers of celestial devils' true forms, and the strongest of them even had almost 4,000 layers. Such a lineup could practically dominate many Kiliacosm domains. As long as there were no peak controller supremacies, they could basically dominate and eliminate all. The celestial devils were cunning and cautious. No matter how much they looked down on Lin Feng verbally, when they actually attacked, they had no intention of underestimating him at all. The combined forces of the 7 emperors was enough to shake the entire dark domain. Even Lin Feng felt heavy pressure. How could the combined forces of 7 emperors be ordinary? However, his expression did not change at all. Instead, a strange smile appeared on his lips. I was just worrying about a lack of world origin for me to continue nurturing my internal worlds. In that case, all of you can come in. Boom. Without any warning, world phantoms appeared above Lin Feng's head. At the same time, the entire universe expanded instantly. It actually devoured the 7 emperors and the celestial devil kings into the internal universe without putting up any resistance. This was rather dangerous and risky. If he was not their match, the 7 emperors might very well tear Lin Feng's internal universe apart completely. However, the benefits were obvious. Until these celestial devil emperors tore apart Lin Feng's internal universe, none of them could escape. Lin Feng had clearly taken these 7 emperors for his own, and would not allow any celestial devils to escape. Good opportunity, break. The hearts of the 7 emperors skipped a beat. However, seeing that Lin Feng actually dared to devour the 7 of them into his internal universe at the same time, all of them were incomparably excited. In their opinion, Lin Feng clearly had a death wish. Even controllers who were far stronger than them would never dare to be so careless and put themselves in danger. Hence, the 7 celestial devil emperors all manifested their strongest celestial devil's true form. Their entire bodies were filled with the aura of destruction, wreaking havoc in Lin Feng's internal universe. Every celestial devil emperor could create a destructive storm that churned the entire internal universe into a mess. Even the cosmic membrane appeared vaguely about to be torn apart. However, Lin Feng remained calm and allowed them to wreak havoc in the internal universe. Only when the internal universe completely descended and enveloped the 7 emperors did a satisfied smile appear on Lin Feng's lips. Chaotic Lotus, suppress the void, Lin Feng shouted softly. Immediately, the enormous chaotic lotus appeared, like a giant tree that stretched across the cosmos of his internal universe. As the chaotic lotus appeared, space immediately stabilized. It was probably 10 or 100 times more powerful than before. For a moment, the 7 emperors also felt a powerful pressure. At the same time, Lin Feng waved his hand, and countless worlds appeared. This was especially the case for the largest world, a colossal world comparable to 2,000 worlds. As soon as it appeared, the expressions of the 7 emperors changed drastically, as if they had been confined by layers of shackles. Boom! A terrifying power descended, and countless worlds surrounded them. At this moment, all the celestial devil emperors sensed Lin Feng's true power. 7,000 worlds. That's the power of at least 7,000 worlds. How is this possible? The strongest among the celestial devils, Emperor Tongshan, sensed the terrifying power contained in the shackles on his body. He finally could not help but exclaim, 7,000 worlds. For a moment, all the celestial devils fell into panic, and their minds went blank. Emperor Mongshan and Emperor Inshan were even frozen to the spot, as if in disbelief. No, impossible. Back when you defeated us, you only had combat power of over 2,000 worlds. How could you suddenly become a powerful controller with combat power of more than 7,000 worlds? Emperor Mongshan was the first to voice his disbelief. Back then, he and Emperor Inshan had personally fought with Lin Feng. He only had combat power of over 2,000 worlds. He might be much stronger than them, but he should be slightly inferior to Emperor Tongshan. But what had happened now? Right now, countless worlds were suppressing them. The power of more than 7,000 worlds confined their massive celestial devils' true forms. There was no mistake about that terrifying power. Could it be that Lin Feng had deliberately concealed his strength back then? No matter how the two of them thought about it, they could not imagine how someone could increase their strength so quickly in such a short period of time. Even those one-star emperors could not possibly increase their strength so quickly. Moreover, Lin Feng was a controller. How could he improve so quickly? How could there be so many worlds for Lin Feng to devour in the entire dark domain? Lin Feng looked at the 7 struggling emperors and shook his head, but did not explain. This was his secret. He would not explain and disclose it to anyone. Moreover, even if these celestial devils died, only their celestial devils' true forms would be destroyed. They could still revive in their respective celestial devil worlds. In that case, Lin Feng no longer hesitated. Everyone, your celestial devils' true forms will stay here forever. Annihilate. As soon as Lin Feng finished speaking, the power of the entire universe compressed in a frenzy. Those celestial devil kings were the first to fail to hold out at all. One celestial devil's true form after another was instantly crushed into dust. Next were Emperor Mongshan, Emperor Inshan, and Emperor Pingshan. Although these slightly weaker celestial devil emperors were extremely unwilling, they were powerless to resist. They were suppressed by Lin Feng's world power and instantly reduced to dust. Lastly were Emperor Tongshan, Emperor White Rainbow, and Emperor Golden Ring. These 3 emperors were the strongest emperors. In their respective chiliocosm domains, they could all be considered hegemons of a region. However, the result of billions of years of ascetic cultivation were about to be destroyed in an instant now. Lin Feng, Emperor Hellfire won't let you off. Just you wait. Emperor Hellfire will definitely annihilate the dark domain. Thud. Emperor Tongshan's celestial devil's true form collapsed instantly, turning into a rich world origin. There were also Emperor White Rainbow and Emperor Golden Ring. The two of them did not say anything harsh. They only glared fiercely at Lin Feng, their meaning clear as day. Emperor Haoming of the exquisite chiliocosm definitely would not let the matter rest. Thud, thud. The true forms of the 2 celestial devil emperors were also destroyed. For a moment, world origin flowed like a river in Lin Feng's internal universe. The world origin was already as rich as a river, surging through the internal universe. The chaotic lotus was delighted as it devoured this energy in a frenzy, converting it into a purer world origin. In this battle alone, including those celestial devil kings, Lin Feng had killed more than 10,000 layers of celestial devil's true form. Of course, converting 10,000 layers of celestial devil's true form into world origin would consume a lot of it. Moreover, nurturing worlds would consume a lot as well. Even so, Lin Feng was satisfied. Even devouring the celestial devil world back provided far less than such a massive amount of world origin. Boom, boom, boom. Countless worlds began to roil in Lin Feng's internal universe. One world after another was nurtured to become stronger, and Lin Feng's combat power increased in a frenzy. Moreover, he only had one goal, and that was to become a one-star supremacy with the combat power of 10,000 worlds. Lin Feng did not hesitate at all. He had already begun to nurture worlds in his internal universe. No matter how much world origin he consumed, he would not hesitate. From 7,000 worlds, 7,500 worlds, 8,000 worlds, 8,500 worlds, 9,000 worlds, Lin Feng's combat power soared wildly, and the world he nurtured became stronger and stronger. It was just that there was no knowing how much world origin he wasted during this period of time. However, Lin Feng did not hesitate at all. He could sense that as the worlds in his internal universe continued to strengthen, the combat power of worlds became stronger and stronger, and closer to that of a one-star supremacy. He vaguely felt that a strange type of rules was brewing. Moreover, it felt like in the end, there would be a sense of metamorphosis. It was getting closer and closer. However, this also seemed to take time to brew. Splash. In the celestial devil world of the exquisite Kiliacosm, sounds came from the celestial devil lake. One after another, celestial devils revived in the celestial devil lake. When the celestial devils guarding the place went in and saw it, they were all dumbfounded. There were so many celestial devil kings. But this was nothing much. What's more, 2 in the lead were famed and prestigious celestial devil emperors. Emperor White Rainbow and Emperor Golden Ring actually revived in the celestial devil lake as well. Heavens! What exactly did they encounter? The ones who revived in the celestial devil lake were Emperor White Rainbow and Emperor Golden Ring. The 2 dignified emperors under the command of Emperor Haoming were influential and prestigious in the exquisite Kiliacosm. Now, their billions of years of ascetic cultivation had been destroyed overnight, and they had actually revived in the celestial devil pool. Even Emperor Haoming probably would not put them in important positions anymore. From now on, they would be pitiful and humble servant celestial devils. They could not even compare to ordinary celestial devils. In fact, the various treasures and resources in their celestial devil palace would be divided among their former subordinates. They had nothing now. No, Lin Feng, I will definitely tear you into pieces. The 2 celestial devil emperors roared wildly. Those celestial devil kings were also down on their luck. They had thought that following the 2 celestial devil emperors would guarantee them another batch of merits. Who would have thought that this would be the outcome? However, they still had Emperor Haoming. Hence, when they reported the news to Emperor Haoming, he was silent for a long time, but in the end he was unmoved. Emperor White Rainbow and Emperor Golden Ring knew that they were finished. Completely finished. Emperor Haoming would not provoke such a powerful controller again. After all, he was only in charge of the exquisite Kiliacosm. Currently, the 2-star emperor behind him had no intention of expanding further. To the high and mighty Emperor Haoming, the death of 2 emperors was just a shame. It was not worth mentioning at all. Celestial devils were all insidious and selfish. As long as their own interests were not harmed, no matter how many celestial devils died, it was nothing to them. In Emperor Hellfire's celestial devil palace in the Black Ice domain, when the various emperors including Emperor Tongshan, Emperor Pingshan, Emperor Mongshan, and Emperor Inshan were brought to the celestial devil palace, Emperor Hellfire could not believe it. These were the emperors under his command. Tell me, what did you encounter? Emperor Hellfire's expression was incomparably dark. Emperor Tongshan was his right-hand man. He was very furious that he had lost Emperor Tongshan. It had to be known that nurturing an emperor was not that easy. Your Majesty, that Lin Feng is extraordinary. He actually has the combat power of 7,000 worlds. His strength has increased by so much in such a short period of time. I suspect that Lin Feng has a secret. Emperor Tongshan could only hope that Emperor Hellfire would still keep in mind their previous friendship now. Or rather, if the information he reported was valuable enough to interest Emperor Hellfire. Otherwise, he would definitely be kicked away by Emperor Hellfire and become the most miserable servant celestial devil. The combat power of 7,000 worlds? A secret. Emperor Hellfire's heart skipped a beat. He was indeed very interested. Moreover, how could a controller who attained the combat power of 7,000 worlds in such a short period of time not have a secret? Anyone would take an interest in this secret. However, Emperor Hellfire was not stupid. With the combat power of 7,000 worlds, Lin Feng was even stronger than him. What could he do? As for reporting it to Emperor Alcor, that was even more unnecessary. He knew that Emperor Alcor was bent on becoming a one-star Celestial Devil Emperor. He was only half a step away now. Why would Emperor Alcor want to complicate matters? Still, Emperor Hellfire was unwilling to let Lin Feng off just like that. Just wait. After Emperor Alcor becomes a one-star Celestial Devil Emperor, he'll be free. At that time, I'll report this information to Emperor Alcor. No matter how strong he is, it's useless in front of a one-star emperor. He'll spill all his secrets. The expression on Emperor Hellfire's face twisted. Then he waved his hand and shooed Emperor Tongshan and the others out. Emperor Tongshan, who had lost his 3,600-layer Celestial Devil's true form, was only a servant Celestial Devil now, just like the others. How could Emperor Hellfire pay them any attention? Such was how cruel the world of Celestial Devils was. Time passed in a flash. The dark domain Kiliacosm was very calm. Actually, Lin Feng had always been on guard against another invasion from the Celestial Devils. Unfortunately, there was no movement at all. He was just using world origin to nurture the worlds now. This required time. A full 10 years had passed, but there was still no movement from the Celestial Devils. No movement. Lin Feng was a little surprised. He even specially inquired about the Black Ice Domain and Emperor Hellfire. However, from the looks of it, he had underestimated himself. A combat power of 7,000 worlds was no longer something that just anyone could suppress at will. Even Emperor Hellfire had to consider it carefully. After all, Emperor Hellfire had not even attained the combat power of 7,000 worlds. How could he take revenge? As for the hegemon of the Black Ice Domain, Emperor Alcor, even if he had a Celestial Devil's true form of more than 9,000 layers, his current focus was on becoming a one-star emperor. How could he complicate matters? Hence, there wouldn't be any movement from the Black Ice Domain. As for the exquisite Kiliacosm, Emperor Haoming probably would not dare to enter the dark domain Kiliacosm alone. After all, the exquisite Kiliacosm still needed Emperor Haoming to guard it. If he left the exquisite Kiliacosm at will, and something happened to the exquisite Kiliacosm, Emperor Haoming would have trouble answering to the one, or even two-star emperor behind him. Hence, the exquisite Kiliacosm would not make any moves either. If they sent more emperors over, and they had not attained the power of 8,000 worlds and did not have the absolute advantage, wouldn't they be walking to their deaths at Lin Feng's hand by coming to the dark domain? Lin Feng was still a little dazed. Unknowingly, he had actually grown to a powerful entity that even the hegemon of a Kiliacosm domain was wary of. In fact, his every move could affect the stability of a Kiliacosm domain. Since Lin Feng had already figured out everything, he did not pay attention to these Celestial Devils. In the past 10 years, he had not just been guarding against those Celestial Devils. More importantly, he focused on his cultivation. Hence, Lin Feng immediately immersed his consciousness in the universe within his body. In 10 years, the worlds in Lin Feng's internal universe had already been nurtured to an extremely powerful level. This combat power was comparable to 9,000 worlds. Such terrifying combat power was close to those peak supremacies. However, when his combat power reached 9,000 worlds, Lin Feng felt that it was becoming harder and harder to improve his worlds. Every time he nurtured a world, the world origin consumed would increase by 10 or 100 times. He had a feeling that something was amiss, as if something was missing. If this continued, it would probably be useless no matter how much world origin he had. A one-star supremacy was a threshold. Apart from absolute power and the number of worlds, there were other things he needed. Lin Feng felt that he might have overlooked something. Special rules, the special rules of the Kiliacosm domain. Lin Feng recalled what Supremacy Autumn had said back then. There were special rules, the special rules of some kiliacosm domains. The internal universe of every one-star supremacy would give rise to some special rules. It was just like a kiliacosm domain. In reality, the internal universe of a one-star supremacy was a miniature kiliacosm domain. Since it was a kiliacosm domain, there must be special rules. Without these special rules, kiliacosm domains could not be formed. Or rather, they would not be kiliacosm domains at all. The special rules were the soul, the key, and the foundation of the kiliacosm domain. Ever since Lin Feng's combat power reached 9,000 worlds, cultivation had become difficult. Originally, he thought that it was because the amount of world origin was insufficient, but from the looks of it, it was not as simple as a lack of world origin. Rather, it's missing special rules. Special rules. Lin Feng closed his eyes slightly. He was sensing the special rules of the dark domain. The special rules of the dark domain were that there was no time, no space, and only the void. There was nothing. People could not warp space and could only rely on flying to travel. Then, how were the special rules of the dark domain formed? Lin Feng sensed carefully. It was actually not difficult to completely comprehend the special rules of a kiliacosm domain, but it would take a very long time. Lin Feng was not in a hurry now. He knew that it was impossible for him to become a one-star supremacy immediately. Apart from strength, he still needed comprehension. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so difficult to become a one-star supremacy. Hence, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Cultivation was timeless, especially in this kind of comprehension for rules. Time showed no signs at all. As time passed, the Domain Alliance world was successfully established. The people of the Domain Alliance no longer lived in Lin Feng's internal universe. The Domain Alliance had also begun their preliminary rule over the Dark Domain. Countless worlds learned of the existence of the Domain Alliance. It was a colossal faction. At the same time, the Domain Alliance was not domineering, and was even willing to impart transcendence techniques. According to Lin Feng's plan, the Domain Alliance would always use the Wonder Domain as a template to completely integrate the Domain Alliance into the sphere of influence of the controllers. Over time, a second local controller would definitely be born in the Dark Domain. 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. In the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed. Swoosh! Lin Feng had been staying in the Dark Domain the entire time, quietly comprehending the special rules of the Dark Domain. I see. Lin Feng opened his eyes. After 100 years of quiet comprehension, he had finally comprehended a trace of the true meaning of the rules of the Dark Domain. Of course, with his current strength, there was actually no difference whether he comprehended the rules of the Dark Domain or not. However, this trace of true meaning pointed out a path for Lin Feng, a grand path that led to becoming a one-star supremacy. So the rules of the kiliacosm domain are not comprehended at all, but born naturally. My internal world still lacks some foundation. But building a foundation is just a matter of time. A smile appeared on Lin Feng's lips. He was enlightened. He could vaguely see the gate to a one-star supremacy. With a light push, it could be opened completely. Time acceleration. Lin Feng immediately accelerated the flow of time in his internal universe to 100,000 times. In the past, Lin Feng could only accelerate time by 10,000 times. But now, his strength was no longer what it used to be, and was enough to accelerate it by 100,000 times. The flow of time was 100,000 times faster, causing Lin Feng's internal universe to change basically all the time. The worlds changed too quickly. As time passed, they naturally grew. Lin Feng even let go of all restraints on the worlds, and did not restrict any of the worlds. Hence, some living beings in the worlds left their world. Collisions also occurred between worlds. Among all kinds of changes, a miraculous change occurred. This change seemed to be still brewing. Once it brewed completely, Lin Feng's internal universe would definitely undergo a tremendous change. In Lin Feng's internal universe, there was an endless cosmos. An extremely huge world hung in the center, surrounded by countless worlds revolving around it. It was as if a strange power was brewing. Once it brewed completely, it would incur violent changes to the entire universe. Lin Feng knew that these were rules. It was different from the previous laws of the universe. They're rules of the Kiliakosm domain. Right now, his internal universe was actually slowly transforming towards a Kiliakosm domain. However, he still needed to nurture the Kiliakosm domain rules, and the nurturing of the Kiliakosm domain rules consumed more than a little energy. In fact, it was a massive amount. Originally, after Lin Feng killed the celestial devil's true forms of the 7 emperors, he had accumulated a large amount of world origin. Forget about 10,000 worlds, he could probably nurture even 12,000 worlds. However, special rules were gradually being nurtured in his internal world. They actually consumed world origin as well. After exhausting all the world origin, there was still a large amount missing. Lin Feng could sense that the special rules were about to take shape. They were constantly rolling and could erupt at any moment. Originally, nurturing rules required a long time of slow accumulation and nurturing. However, Lin Feng accelerated the time. The flow of time in his internal universe had even reached 100,000 times. This naturally required a large amount of world origin. Even the large amount of world origin that Lin Feng had accumulated was somewhat in short supply. Actually, if Lin Feng retracted the time acceleration and slowly accumulated it, there would naturally be no problem. However, Lin Feng did not want to delay and nurture them slowly. Wasn't it just world origin? Lin Feng naturally had his ways. There might not be many unclaimed worlds here, but celestial devils were definitely everywhere. Even if there were no celestial devils in the dark domain, how could there not be celestial devils in other Kiliakosm domains? Lin Feng would not stay pointlessly in the dark domain forever. At the very least, Lin Feng knew that there were many celestial devils in 2 Kiliakosm domains, the exquisite Kiliakosm domain and the black ice domain. He was also weighing the pros and cons, and preparing to trounce them. If he wanted to successfully nurture the special rules of his internal world at once, he would need a large amount of world origin, even greater than the world origin he obtained from slaying the 7 emperors the last time. This was Lin Feng's shortcut. However, this shortcut was not so easy to achieve at all. Neither the black ice domain nor the exquisite Kiliakosm were easy to deal with. Lin Feng weighed the pros and cons for a long time before finally making a decision. He set his goal on the black ice domain. After all, the strongest individual in the black ice domain was Emperor Alcor, who had over 9,000 layers of celestial devil's true form, and was half a step away from becoming a 1-star celestial devil emperor. Lin Feng could still barely manage to deal with him. Moreover, he might not have to fight with Emperor Alcor from the beginning. As long as there was some buffer time, the special rules of his internal world might have already been nurtured by then. Moreover, even if he faced Emperor Alcor head-on, Lin Feng had nothing to fear. With the current strength of his cosmic membrane, apart from 1-star emperors or 1-star supremacies, he really didn't fear anyone. On the other hand, on the surface, the exquisite Kiliakosm domain seemed to be inferior to the black ice Kiliakosm domain, or even far inferior. Emperor Haoming only had more than 8,000 layers of celestial devil's true form, and was still somewhat inferior to the famous Emperor Alcor. However, Lin Feng knew very well that the power hidden in the exquisite Kiliakosm was too terrifying. The waters of the exquisite Kiliakosm ran too deep. Behind it was a 1-star emperor or even a 2-star emperor. Comparatively speaking, the black ice domain was an easy target. The black ice domain it is. This time, I must nurture the special rules of my internal world, and even metamorphose into a true 1-star supremacy. A sharp glint flashed across Lin Feng's eyes, which were filled with fervor. He had been looking forward to becoming a 1-star supremacy for a long time. Wasn't the goal of most controllers to become a 1-star supremacy? But now, Lin Feng was already very close to becoming a 1-star supremacy. He was just one step away. Lin Feng had already made up his mind, so he began to get the Domain Alliance to collect information on the Black Ice domain. Having a faction was indeed different. Lin Feng only needed to give the order to collect information like this, and wait patiently. Without any faction, it would be too tiring for Lin Feng to do everything himself. In a very short period of time, the Domain Alliance had collected a large amount of information about the Black Ice domain. This was also a manifestation of the influence of the Domain Alliance. As Lin Feng killed the 7 Celestial Devil Emperors in one fell swoop, how could the Domain Alliance not publicize such a thing properly? Moreover, the Domain Alliance was not afraid that other Celestial Devils would target the Dark Domain now. Hence, the more high-profile, the better. Under such circumstances, the Dark Domain and the Domain Alliance were no longer unknown. They even gradually gained a certain reputation in some surrounding domains. There were even some foreign controllers who took the initiative to apply to join the Domain Alliance. This was a good sign. The intelligence has almost been gathered. In the Black Ice domain, apart from Emperor Alcor, the 9 emperors under Emperor Alcor are the ones I need to pay attention to. Among them is Emperor Hellfire. However, these emperors are actually not worth mentioning. I need an intervention point. Yes, I'll just interfere directly with the Domain Alliance. Lin Feng weighed his options for a long time before finally making up his mind. Although it was generally believed that the Black Ice domain was the Kiliacosm domain of Emperor Alcor, Emperor Alcor was not the ruler of the domain yet. Although the Celestial Devils faction was powerful in the Black Ice domain, there were still a small number of controller forces in the Black Ice domain. However, these controller factions were not united. Instead, they resisted those Celestial Devils independently in their own ways. This was actually good news for Lin Feng. Intervening directly in the Black Ice domain as the Domain Alliance probably would not cause much of a reaction. After all, the presence or absence of the Domain Alliance did not change much. There was no need to pay attention to it at all. Although the Domain Alliance had some reputation, it was still far inferior to Emperor Alcor. However, deep down, Lin Feng had a huge ambition. His goal was not just to interfere with the Black Ice domain, nor was it just to harvest a batch of Celestial Devils. His true goal was to use a large number of Celestial Devils in the Black Ice domain to become a 1-star supremacy. Then, he would completely sweep through the Black Ice domain and defeat all enemies, thereby becoming the true ruler of a domain. The Domain Alliance would become a pivotal faction in the countless surrounding domains. This was Lin Feng's true goal. Hence, Lin Feng gathered the mainstays of the Domain Alliance and announced his intention to invade the Black Ice domain. For a moment, the Domain Alliance was shocked. However, Lin Feng controlled everything in the Domain Alliance. He even revealed a little of his strength. All the upper echelons of the Domain Alliance were stunned. They were even willing to cooperate fully, and did not oppose him at all. This was because they knew what this meant. This meant that it was very likely that a true 1-star supremacy would be born in the Domain Alliance during this trip to the Black Ice domain. Alliance leader. The Black Ice domain is ahead. On a huge airship, Supremacy Autumn introduced it to Lin Feng. He seemed to be very excited. Looking at the Black Ice domain, a sharp glint flashed across his eyes. He no longer looked despondent and dispirited like before. Supremacy Autumn insisted on following Lin Feng here. He could already foresee what kind of turmoil Lin Feng and the Domain Alliance would invoke in the Black Ice domain. Back when the Primordial Lodge was conquering the exquisite Kiliacosm, he did not really participate. Although he was a 4-season supremacy, he entered the exquisite Kiliacosm later. At that time, the war was already nearing its end. The true merit belonged to Supremacy Spring. But now, Supremacy Autumn would be fortunate enough to participate himself. He would even follow Lin Feng to fight in the Black Ice domain. How could he not be excited? As for the Dark domain, with Supremacy Winter presiding over it, it should be fine. Lin Feng glanced at Supremacy Autumn. Actually, be it Supremacy Autumn or Supremacy Winter, they were both restricted by the boundary stone in their bodies. Their limit was 300 worlds. This was the maximum limit, and they could not break through because this was the nature of the boundary stones they used to establish their worlds. Their quality could only be considered average. However, there would be a chance to obtain high-quality boundary stones in the future. If he obtained high-quality boundary stones, Lin Feng would naturally give them to Supremacy Autumn and Supremacy Winter. Lin Feng would even keep a portion of high-quality boundary stones as treasures in the Domain Alliance's treasure vault. They would be rewarded to those controllers who had made great contributions to the Domain Alliance. This was what ordinary large-scale controller factions did. They could bestow high-quality boundary stones to some controllers who had made great contributions. Back then, Supremacy Spring had made great contributions to the Primordial Lodge, and was bestowed a 1-star boundary stone. From there, he could replace the boundary stone in his body, and have a chance of becoming a 1-star supremacy. Many controllers who joined the large controller organizations actually had the same idea. After all, it was too difficult to obtain a high-quality boundary stone alone. Lin Feng also had this preliminary idea. Since he had established a faction, he would definitely develop a faction. High-quality boundary stones were very rare. From Lin Feng's experience, this was evident. Despite all kinds of opportunities, in reality, the boundary stone with the highest quality he had obtained after so long was only a half-finished 1-star boundary stone. This was enough to show how difficult obtaining this high-quality boundary stone was. However, high-quality boundary stones could only be chanced upon by luck. They were all produced in kiliocosm domains. The larger the kiliocosm domain, the more likely high-quality boundary stones would be produced. There might be many high-quality boundary stones in the Black Ice domain. This was also an important reason why Lin Feng decided to enter the Black Ice domain. Soon, the people from the Domain Alliance arrived outside the Black Ice domain. Anyone could enter the Black Ice domain, but once they entered, it was hard to say what they would encounter. Alliance leader, don't we have to consider the area we'll enter? If we enter an area controlled by the Celestial Devils. Supremacy Autumn was a little worried. There's no need. Our Domain Alliance isn't entering the Black Ice domain for sightseeing. We're here to sweep through the Black Ice domain. No matter where we enter, it's the same, Lin Feng said confidently. Indeed, the current Domain Alliance was qualified to compete for a huge kiliocosm domain. This was simply unimaginable. It had to be known that only a large controller faction like the Primordial Lodge could compete for the exquisite kiliocosm back then. Buzz. The large spaceship passed through the barrier of the kiliocosm forcefully, and entered the Black Ice domain. As soon as they entered the Black Ice domain, everyone felt a bone-piercing cold. These were the special rules of the Black Ice domains. In reality, they had already sensed this type of special rules while in the kiliocosm domain corridor. However, in the Black Ice domain, this type of rules were stronger. Of course, the cold rules of the Black Ice domain were only very ordinary rules. Even a controller with one world could easily resist them by circulating the power of their world, and they posed no threat to everyone at all. Who is it? As soon as the people from the Domain Alliance entered the Black Ice domain, they sensed a fluctuation of the world. Looking closer, they realized that this place was densely packed with people. They were actually all controllers, and all of them were very vigilant. Controllers? Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Their luck was not bad. They had actually entered the sphere of influence of the resistance in the Black Ice domain directly. In the Black Ice domain, Celestial Devils were the absolute hegemons, and already occupied almost 90% of the regions. However, 10% of the regions were still occupied by various controller factions. Currently, the Celestial Devils were constantly clearing out the controller factions. It could already be foreseen that in less than 10,000 years, the controllers of the Black Ice domain would definitely be cleared out. And now, these controllers were just persevering with great difficulty. Seeing that both parties were controllers, they relaxed for a moment. Swoosh! A powerful controller flew over from the other side. Judging from the aura on his body, he should have hundreds of worlds. He could be considered a leader among controllers. Who are you? Why did you enter the area controlled by our Sky Mending Lodge? Sky Mending Lodge? Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He had never heard of this faction. On the other hand, Supremacy Autumn smiled and explained, "This is a small controller organization. They do not even have a 1-star supremacy. The strongest individual is only a controller comparable to the Celestial Devil Emperor, called Supremacy Skymender, with only over 1,000 worlds. Currently, it's one of the many controller factions in the Black Ice domain. They're just taking advantage of the crisis in the Black Ice domain and using the last bit of time to obtain some benefits." Lin Feng nodded. This was how small controller factions worked. They took advantage of crises and obtained some benefits. If they really entered a major battle with the Celestial Devils, these small controller organizations would not be able to resist at all. Hence, Supremacy Autumn also went forward to negotiate. We are from the Domain Alliance of the Dark Domain. Currently, we are officially entering the Black Ice Domain to resist the Celestial Devils with you. Domain Alliance? Could it be the famous Domain Alliance in that Dark Domain? That's right. The Domain Alliance is one thing, but their alliance leader is a ferocious expert who killed 7 Celestial Devil Emperors and occupied a Chiliocosm domain. Looks like the Domain Alliance is also ambitious and wants to get a share of the profits in the Black Ice Domain. However, considering the current situation of the Black Ice Domain, the stronger the controller faction, the more they will be targeted by the Celestial Devils. Entering now is simply courting death. However, I heard that this Domain Alliance treats its members extremely well, and their alliance leader is a powerful controller. Its members may have a bright future. Should we also consider taking this opportunity to join the Domain Alliance? Hearing the name of the Domain Alliance, the controllers of the Sky Mending Lodge were also tempted. It was just a small controller organization to begin with, and they only banded together for safety. The controllers inside did not have much loyalty to speak of, and their discipline was not strong. If their discipline was very strong, the Sky Mending Lodge probably would not be able to recruit anyone. Now that they saw that the Domain Alliance seemed to hold a better future, some people naturally had some ideas. Just as both parties were about to negotiate further, the controllers of the Sky Mending Lodge suddenly panicked. This is bad. The Celestial Devils are attacking. These Celestial Devils are actually here again. Why do they keep targeting our Sky Mending Lodge? Run! Run now! As soon as they heard that a Celestial Devil was attacking, the expressions of these controllers of the Sky Mending Lodge changed. Without a word, they fled. The controllers of the Domain Alliance were left dumbfounded as they looked at each other. Since when did controllers actually fear Celestial Devils to this extent? Alliance leader, this is the sad thing about a small controller faction. They are not loyal to the Sky Mending Lodge at all. Faced with the Celestial Devils who have the advantage, what can they do apart from running? Supremacy Autumn understood this situation very well. The war between controllers and Celestial Devils was not always the same as the war between the Primordial Lodge and the Celestial Devils. It was not even like the war between the Domain Alliance and the Celestial Devils. Every controller had to experience many hardships to become a controller. Who would throw their life away for nothing? Moreover, they had only entered the Black Ice Domains to make a quick fortune amidst the crisis. They had never thought of gaining a foothold in the Black Ice Domain at all. Moreover, they could not gain a foothold in the Black Ice Domain at all. The Celestial Devil had the absolute advantage. If they did not escape, wouldn't they be courting death? Lin Feng remained calm when he heard this. He glanced at the controller who had fled far away in the blink of an eye, and a smile appeared on his lips. There seemed to be many controller factions like the Black Ice Domain. They are always in danger, and only want to make a quick fortune before leaving. Isn't it also because there is no guarantee of safety at all for a small controller faction? Supremacy Autumn, didn't you say that the expansion of the Domain Alliance is very difficult, because not many controllers are willing to join? There are so many controllers in the Black Ice Domain. This is an opportunity. Opportunity. Supremacy Autumn pondered. That's right, an opportunity. Moreover, now is an opportunity to show all the controllers of the Black Ice Domain the strength of our Domain Alliance. Moreover, the aspirations of our Domain Alliance are different from theirs. As soon as Lin Feng finished speaking, he immediately ordered, "Fight the enemy!" Splash. Countless controllers of the Domain Alliance instantly flew down from the spaceship and arranged themselves in formation. Lin Feng took a total of half of the controllers from the Dark Domain, more than 100 of them. Right now, these 100 or so controllers could not even compare to the Sky Mending Lodge in terms of numbers. However, they were all in unison at once, stood in formation, and waited quietly for those Celestial Devils in the void. That murderous aura was far from what the controllers of the Sky Mending Lodge could compare to. The many controllers of the Sky Mending Lodge had already fled for a long distance. When they turned around and saw the people from the Domain Alliance fly out of the spaceship, looking ready for battle, they could not help but stop again. What are they doing? Are they trying to fight those Celestial Devils? Heavens, as expected, the inexperienced know no fear. What's the use of fighting with these celestial devils? Even if there's only 10% of this black ice domain left, there are still a large number of unclaimed worlds. Shouldn't they take this opportunity to make a quick fortune instead of fighting those celestial devils? Those celestial devils have the absolute advantage. Now, there's even a celestial devil emperor who's not inferior to our lodge master. Fighting them? That would be courting death. Even the lodge master of the Sky Mending Lodge, Supremacy Skymender, frowned. He had a feeling that something was amiss about the Domain Alliance's sudden entry into the Black Ice domain. The one leading the team this time is Emperor Mocha. He has cultivated a total of 1,300 layers of the Celestial Devil's true form. Even I may not be able to gain the upper hand over him. Moreover, Emperor Mocha has 13 Celestial Devil Kings under his command. They were ordered to sweep through our area this time. Why would they clash head-on against Emperor Mocha? Moreover, I didn't sense much of a powerful aura from the people of the Domain Alliance. Supremacy Skymender was very confused. Everyone was just getting by in the Black Ice domain and taking the opportunity to make a quick fortune before leaving. Why fight the Celestial Devils with their lives? Moreover, even if they fought with their lives, how could they defeat those Celestial Devils? Supremacy Skymender did not understand, and neither did the other controller factions. In their opinion, these mere 100-odd controllers were just tempting fate by fighting those Celestial Devils. In fact, there would even be a true massacre next. The moment the Domain Alliance entered the Black Ice domain, it was likely doomed. Those controllers in front actually want to fight us head-on? Haha, that's great. In the past, these controllers were all slippery, and we could not see anyone at all. It was difficult to even kill a controller. This time, it would be different. I wonder which controller faction it is. They're actually so foolish. Kill all these controllers and devour their world origin. The worlds of controllers are all very delicious. Countless celestial devils wore sinister expressions as they manifested their celestial devils' true forms and surged forward majestically. There were even more than 10 celestial devil kings among them. Each of them had hundreds of layers of celestial devil's true form, and they simply blotted out all the surroundings. Their auras were terrifying, enough to sweep through all obstacles. The mere 100 or so controllers of the Domain Alliance were simply too insignificant before so many powerful celestial devils. They might be crushed into dust in an instant. However, these 100 or so controllers were not afraid at all. In fact, they were incomparably confident. This was because they knew that their invincible alliance leader was in the spaceship. Lin Feng also watched as the distant Celestial Devil Emperor approached. Even the Celestial Devil Emperor approached. A smile appeared on his lips. He had originally intended to amaze all with a single feat after entering the Black Ice domain. He did not expect to have such an opportunity as soon as he entered the Black Ice domain. Of course, Lin Feng would not put those 100 or so controllers at risk. These controllers were only used to manage the Black Ice domain, not to fight with those celestial devils. Even if they wanted to fight, now was not the time. Moreover, Lin Feng still needed a large amount of world origin now, and these celestial devils were undoubtedly the best energy source. Swoosh! Lin Feng stepped forward and flew into the void, standing in front of the 100 or so controllers. He stood in the void with his hands behind his back, his gaze disdainful, as if he was looking down on all the celestial devils below. Even that Celestial Devil Emperor's heart skipped a beat the moment he saw Lin Feng. He had a vague premonition. That's... Emperor Mocha frowned, as if he was thinking about something. However, Lin Feng would not give him time to contemplate slowly. He placed his hands behind his back, and a vast universe appeared above his head at once. There were faint worlds flickering inside. A terrifying pressure filled the void. "Come on!" Lin Feng growled. Immediately, the membrane of the internal universe expanded majestically. It expanded in the blink of an eye, and like a huge mouth, it devoured forcefully. Boom! Universe descending. In an instant, countless celestial devils, and even those controllers, sensed an irresistible and terrifying aura. It felt suffocating as it instantly enveloping all the celestial devils. There were hundreds of celestial devils, and there was even Emperor Mocha among them. Lin Feng had actually devoured them in one gulp, and swept them directly into his internal world. Ordinary controllers would practically be courting death if they did this. No one would be bold enough to sweep so many celestial devils into their internal world. However, Lin Feng did not hesitate at all. He devoured hundreds of celestial devils in one gulp without any reservations. Boom! In the internal universe, as the colossal world comparable to 2,000 worlds appeared, all the celestial devils despaired. No. Emperor Mocha was also struggling wildly. He manifested his celestial devil's true form. The celestial devil's true form of more than 1,000 layers transformed into a terrifying fiendish god, attempting to tear through the cosmic membrane. Unfortunately, the cosmic membrane was incomparably durable. Even Emperor Mocha could not shake it. At the same time, the world pressed down directly. Hundreds of celestial devils, including the massive celestial devil's true form of Emperor Mocha, shattered with a bang, turning into dust. For a moment, the entire void went incomparably quiet. One could hear a pin drop. Everyone stared dumbfounded at Lin Feng, who was standing with his hands behind his back in the void. From the beginning to the end, Lin Feng did not move a single step. He did not even move his hands, and hundreds of celestial devils were annihilated and reduced to ashes. He's the alliance leader of the Domain Alliance, the Dark Domain Supremacy, Lin Feng. Supremacy Skymender was incomparably shocked. It seemed like he had finally recognized Lin Feng's identity. He could not help but exclaim, "The Dark Domain Supremacy." This was Lin Feng's current title. He dominated the entire Dark Domain and established the Domain Alliance. He had killed 7 emperors in a row, and was no longer someone unknown. Hence, his reputation spread, and he naturally became the Dark Domain Supremacy. Anyone who could be given a title was extraordinary. They were all outstanding among supremacies, and Lin Feng was undoubtedly qualified. As Supremacy Skymender cried out in alarm, the entire void became even quieter. Just now, in order to establish authority, Lin Feng had swallowed the hundreds of celestial devils, including Emperor Mocha, in one gulp in front of everyone. Moreover, he instantly crushed them into dust. The surrounding controllers saw this scene clearly. For a moment, they were incomparably stunned. Their eyes lit up as they looked at the people from the Domain Alliance. Not enough, far from enough. Lin Feng devoured hundreds of celestial devils in one gulp, including more than a dozen celestial devil kings and a celestial devil emperor. The amount of world origin he obtained was also very massive. However, the world origin required to nurture the Kiliacosm domain rules in Lin Feng's internal world was even greater. It was like a bottomless pit. The world origin that Lin Feng had just obtained was completely absorbed in the blink of an eye, and there seemed to be no sign of the Kiliacosm domain rules at all. Still, Lin Feng was not in a hurry. Improving his strength further to become a one-star supremacy was not the sole reason the Domain Alliance entered the Black Ice domain. There was another important reason, and that was to completely eliminate the celestial devils in the entire Black Ice domain. To completely eliminate the celestial devils and occupy the entire Black Ice domain, just over 100 controllers from the Domain Alliance were far from enough. Hence, taking advantage of the opportunity of how he had showed his prowess, just now, Lin Feng said to all the surrounding controllers, "Our Domain Alliance has only one goal for coming to the Black Ice domain this time, and that is to sweep through the Black Ice domain and completely expel the celestial devils in the Black Ice domain. The Domain Alliance will conquer the Black Ice domain. Our Domain Alliance is expanding and recruiting, and will not reject anyone. There is only one chance. If you miss this opportunity, it won't be so easy to join the Domain Alliance next time." Lin Feng's words immediately stirred excitement in all the surrounding controllers. The members of the Sky Mending Lodge, for example, were tempted. Wasn't this obvious? Compared to the Domain Alliance, the Sky Mending Lodge was insignificant, and was even in danger of being destroyed at any moment. But what about the Domain Alliance? They were bold and ambitious, and even wanted to sweep through the entire Black Ice domain. How great would the benefits be? If they could participate in this great upheaval, They could even advance in leaps and bounds at once. Of course, there were also controllers who were a little hesitant. Although the alliance leader of the Domain Alliance was powerful, the Black Ice domain was dominated by the Celestial Devils. This was especially the case for Emperor Alcor, who was only half a step away from becoming a one-star venerable. Once he became a one-star emperor, no one in the entire Black Ice domain would be able to stop him. Joining the Domain Alliance might be a dead end. However, it was precisely because of this concern that Lin Feng and the people from the Domain Alliance were very at ease. Those who were willing to join the Domain Alliance at this time were all people with determination and confidence. They were not fence-sitters, but people with the spirit of adventure. They could be trained intensively in the future. These were the people the Domain Alliance needed. Hence, Lin Feng simply occupied this place and used it as the base of the Domain Alliance for the time being. He began to recruit the surrounding controllers who were willing to join the Domain Alliance. He was not in a hurry to find those celestial devils, for he believed that those celestial devils must be even more anxious than him. What? Mocha is dead? He was killed by a faction called the Domain Alliance, and its alliance leader is the Dark Domain Supremacy. In the Celestial Devil Palace, the direct superior of Emperor Mocha and one of the 9 great emperors under Emperor Alcor, Empress Monica, had a dark expression. Although she was female, she was the most sinister, cunning, and cruel. She had devoured countless worlds, and could be considered rather powerful among the 9 great emperors. Her strength could be at least ranked in the top 5, with a total of 7,000 layers of Celestial Devil's true form. Having just received this news, despite being angered, Empress Monica appeared rather cautious. Investigate this Domain Alliance and what's going on with the Dark Domain Supremacy. Such a powerful supremacy wouldn't suddenly appear in the Black Ice domain. The reason why Empress Monica could survive until now, and even condense 7,000 layers of the Celestial Devil's true form, was prudence. In the battle of the Black Ice domain, Emperor Alcor also relied heavily on Empress Monica. She could be considered to have made great war contributions for Emperor Alcor. For example, Empress Monica was completely in charge of the remaining controller faction in the Black Ice domain. Empress Monica had never heard of any domain alliance, let alone the Dark Domain Supremacy. Now that such a powerful controller had suddenly appeared, she naturally had to investigate it thoroughly. The Celestial Devil's intelligence system was also rather outstanding. Soon, the investigator returned, and handed the record of the results of the investigation to Empress Monica. Looking at the information collected, Empress Monica's expression became darker and darker. That fool Hellfire actually lost 7 emperors previously, but concealed the matter instead of reporting it. In the end, he missed an ambitious faction like the Domain Alliance. Summon Emperor Hellfire. Although Emperor Hellfire was also one of the 9 great emperors under Emperor Alcor, Empress Monica was in charge now. She was high in status, and even Emperor Hellfire had to be wary of her. Hence, Emperor Hellfire quickly rushed to the Celestial Devil Palace personally. Empress Monica, why did you ask me to come? Emperor Hellfire asked in a low voice. Why? Emperor Hellfire, look at what you've done. With that, he told her about how Lin Feng had killed the 7 emperors. There was a trace of anger in Emperor Hellfire's eyes. Then, he sneered and said, Empress Monica, Emperor Alcor put you fully in charge of the expulsion of the controllers. Still, you have no right to order me around. These 7 emperors are emperors under my command. So what if they're dead? What does it have to do with you? Emperor Hellfire was also furious, and was very disrespectful to Empress Monica. What does it have to do with me? Emperor Hellfire, do you realize that the Domain Alliance has already entered the Black Ice domain? The Dark Domain Supremacy, Lin Feng, has even killed hundreds of Celestial Devils in the Black Ice domain. Among them, there's even a Celestial Devil Emperor. He even threatened to sweep through the entire Black Ice domain and go against Emperor Alcor. What do you think this has to do with me? What? The Dark Domain Supremacy, Lin Feng, has come to the Black Ice domain. Emperor Hellfire was slightly stunned, appearing very surprised. However, he immediately laughed aloud. Haha, this Lin Feng is really arrogant to the extreme. I didn't have time to find trouble with him, but he came knocking on my door instead. Mrs. Monica, don't worry. I'll personally kill the Dark Domain Supremacy, Lin Feng, and expel all the controllers in the southeast region along the way. Emperor Hellfire knew why Empress Monica was making such a big deal out of this. However, in order to kill Lin Feng, so what if he had to make a trip personally? He hated Lin Feng to the bone, and had lost 7 emperors to him. This was not a small loss. Could even be said to have damaged Emperor Hellfire's foundation. Empress Monica's eyes narrowed slightly. She said with a smile, "If Emperor Hellfire can go personally, I'm naturally assured. As long as Emperor Hellfire can get rid of Lin Feng and sweep through the controllers in the southeast region, I promise I won't breathe a word to Emperor Alcor." Emperor Hellfire's expression was very dark, but he could only nod. Then he bade farewell and left. He wanted to go down and make preparations. He had to kill Lin Feng once and for all in the Black Ice domain to vent his anger. Otherwise, if Emperor Alcor discovered that he had suffered such a huge loss, he would definitely be punished.